Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney panics as real losses show total implosion of Marvel. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from Deadline, Disney detonates 4 bombs in Deadline's 2023 Most Valuable Blockbuster Tournament. Deadline is doing an assessment. They're doing profit and loss estimates based on their industry experience and their expertise and their inside contacts. The Deadline info is actually quite good, and you can rely on it. And they figured out that The Marvels was the worst blockbuster in terms of financial performance. They find $237 million worth of losses. I would call it literally billions of dollars worth of losses, because they have damaged the Marvel brand so severely. It's not what it was before the Marvels came out. Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania was one thing. This was destruction of the brand. For example, go back to 2019. That was 5 years ago. This was from April 28th. 2019 is not like 1995. It's pretty recent. But in only 5 years, they went from this to that. Avengers Endgame. Hollywood should be scared of Disney's box office dominance. That wasn't being facetious. They weren't trying to make a joke there. Resistance is futile, as Disney Marvel scores a $1.2 billion global box office record, but defies gravity as the studio's 4 other films held better than the rest. And they didn't just do like $1 billion on the Avengers Endgame movie. This is the results from 2019 from the Avengers Endgame movie in movie theaters worldwide. That doesn't include Blu-ray, DVD, digital downloads, relicensing the film to other platforms for streaming, for broadcast TV, other digital exploitation of it, and the fact that when they did this movie and they had this level of success, industry perception was, wow, not only was Avengers a hit, it was a monster hit. And it was a monster hit that was tied into the entire Marvel brand. They had done a lot of other movies to lead up to Endgame, but it was believed and understood that Disney was basically unstoppable with the Marvel brand. Just one of their brands, doing more than $2.7 billion on one movie, on one brand, where they own the entire library. That's where they were coming from just 5 years ago. 5 years later, literally to the day, the Avengers directors are trying to give Marvel a pass. Maybe they want to do another Avengers movie. Here's what they say in Variety. This article's from April 29th, 2024. This article, when they were talking about how Avengers Endgame was such an unstoppable monster, it was April 28th, 2019. Here's their take on what's wrong. From Variety, Avengers directors say Marvel's recent problems aren't due to superhero fatigue, but a big generational divide about how you consume media. Now they're talking about TikTok videos. They're talking about how people really like short-form content. Yes, people do like short-form content. But is that really the problem? Could they actually not know what the issue is? Chris Hemsworth says of Thor 4, they ruined it. From IndieWire, Chris Hemsworth says he became a parody of himself in Thor: Love and Thunder. Quote, I got caught up in the improv and the wackiness, the actor said. I didn't stick the landing. If they were going to do silliness, if they were going to do wackiness, and if short-form video actually had anything to do with why these movies are failing from Marvel, then why not have Thor do TikTok dances? Probably would have got a lot of views. Probably would have gotten some people into the idea of a wacky version of Thor. Will they have Deadpool dances on TikTok? They probably should, especially if there was any legitimacy to this theory, but there isn't. Because Spider-Man, which comes out from Sony, because Sony has the rights to Spider-Man movies, from Deadline, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse conquers superhero fatigue at number 3 in Deadline's 2023 Most Valuable Blockbuster Tournament. Do you know how much money this Spider-Man movie made? It wasn't in the billions, but it was really successful. Its total revenues were $598 million. Domestic ticket sales of $381 million, international $309 million, a total of $690 million worldwide. And that gave the studio theatrical revenues of $328 million, $110 million in home entertainment, and $160 in television and streaming licensing. Just under $600 million in revenue to the studio. To generate $598 million on Across the Spider-Verse for Sony, they had to spend $270 million, with only $100 million in production cost. So where Disney will spend $200 million, $250 million, they don't even know, on one of their bomb terrible movies. And it's not just the Marvels. They did it on Wish, they did it on Indiana Jones, by filmmakers that were in their positions for the wrong reasons, destroying brands, destroying the value of their company. But Sony understands how to do it. So altogether, Sony spends $270 million to generate $598 million with a $328 million profit on their animated Spider-Man film, because they had their production costs in line and they made the kind of film that people wanted to see. Even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles made money. Of course, Ninja Turtles is based on a comic, which was a parody of Marvel and drew tremendous amounts of inspiration, including their origin story from Marvel's Daredevil. They made money too. They came away with a $204 million profit. Their total revenues were $360 million, with total expenses to generate that $360 million at $164 million, leaving them the $204 million profit. Also, you'll notice a $70 million production cost. Very disciplined production cost. Something Disney does not do anymore. Disney used to be known as a cheap studio. High concept, cheap movies. And they made profits, and they built their business that way. And now they're a total mess. Here's the detailed breakdown on the net loss for the Marvels. When Marvel fanboys and fangirls smell it's going to be good, they crowd the theater. But when it's a dud, they stay away. One would think that a sequel to a $1.1 billion grossing female superhero movie would be logical and asked for. However, the Marvel's predecessor, Captain Marvel, benefited at the box office from being a bridge between the Avengers finales Infinity War and Endgame. It's like a one-half Avengers movie. For the people that really cared about Avengers and really cared about Marvel, you kind of had to see Captain Marvel to get the whole story. Yes, the actors' strike did pour a lot of cold water on promoting the film, with the thespian standoff ending just days before the sequel opening November 10th, and Brie Larson running around trying to do late-night shows to promote the movie. But there was more to this. The movie was trying to thread storylines from Disney Plus shows like Ms. Marvel, which was part of a grander master plan by Marvel to connect the series with movies. And that strategy didn't work. First of all, people really didn't like Ms. Marvel. They just didn't. They still don't. So the fact that it exists doesn't mean it's going to be a hit. The different thing about the Avengers was people were actually interested in the Avengers characters. People wanted to see more from Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes, they threw Captain Marvel in there, but nobody wanted to see that. That was just riding on the coattails of the success of the other characters and all of the momentum they built up. Nobody had any kind of interest in any of the characters in the Marvels. And I'll tell you something, I saw the Marvels. I saw it once. I'm not going to go watch it again. But Brie Larson was actually the best actor in the Marvels. She had the best performance. She was the most interesting. And she was terrible. And the whole thing was terrible. But of course, tying in with another series is not going to make a movie successful. Conceptually, it's good. But you have to only tie in things that people are actually interested in. Marvel has prided itself on hiring independent directors, plugging them into their system, and turning them into blockbuster filmmakers. Obviously, it's a recipe that doesn't always work, evident in this movie, directed by and co-written by Nia DaCosta. And another example was the failure of Marvel's The Eternals. The MCU at its height won over both critics and audiences. But that definitely didn't happen here, with a 62% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes and a B Cinema score. The Marvel's total revenues came in at $218 million, which is shocking because when you look at not just the history of Marvel, not just the power of Disney to be able to promote its movies, whatever movie they decide they want to promote, but also Disney's unparalleled distribution. They own multiple cable channels. They own a broadcast network, ABC. They have their own streaming service. Any movie that Disney does is not going to generate $1 less because they don't really have sufficient distribution for it. Their movies, their TV shows have the opportunity to get distributed anywhere and everywhere that a movie or TV show could possibly be distributed to. So they have that additional advantage of not losing out on revenue in even small countries through multiple platforms. But that's not even their only advantage. Because they own a lot of their own distribution, they can kind of make up the numbers of how much they get paid for television and streaming. Because they can pay, for example, from their television and streaming divisions, almost an arbitrary number. Not completely arbitrary. It can't be that far out of reality in terms of what the box office results were. but they have a tremendous amount of flexibility to boost up the numbers. Oh, well, our television and streaming services will pay $90 million for the rights to the Marvels, when if they went out to the marketplace with it, they may get significantly less than that. Maybe even as much as half of that. There's really no way for us to know, because they're not out there competitively offering it, and they're certainly not going to tell you what their assumptions about that would be, because it doesn't help them to talk about that. But look at what this movie did. Their total revenues were $218 million from all sources, but their production cost to get that $218 million was $270 million. Prints and ads were $110 million. Residuals and other distribution expenses, $21 million. And their interest and overhead was $54 million, with a total loss of $237 million. Now, of those production costs, some of those costs with that $270 million number could have been reduced by reimbursements from the UK government, because they get credits and they get money back for providing work and jobs like other studios do when they make their projects at Pinewood Studios in the UK, and that helps the UK's local economy. There are other states in the United States that also offer these cash rebates. There are other countries like Canada that also offer rebates. It's not that unusual. But you can rest assured, Disney losing $237 million on the Marvels movie and permanently damaging, this is a massive scar that cannot go away, permanently damaging the Marvel brand and the opportunity with Marvel is a real thing. It doesn't mean they won't make more Marvel movies. Yes, they have more Marvel movies coming. But the horrendous execution on producing this Marvel's movie has cost them much more than a couple of $100 million. It's easily in the billions. Warner Brothers also had a bomb with The Flash. It was an ill-conceived movie. The timing was bad. They lost over $150 million on The Flash. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, also from Disney, lost $143 million. Their total revenues on their Indiana Jones movie came in at $373 million, with total expenses of $516 million. Also, with the production cost of $300 million on this Indiana Jones movie, some of that might have been reimbursed. Maybe their loss was a little bit less. But like the destruction of the Marvel franchise, not the Marvels franchise, the entire Marvel Studios franchise, the destruction of Indiana Jones as a brand is also something that goes well beyond losing $143 million. Disney also lost $131 million on Wish. It generated only $231 million in revenue, with an expense basis of $362 million for a loss of $131 million. Why is it that when Disney makes Wish, they have to spend $200 million, $200 million even, but a movie like Spider-Man can be made for $100 million, and a movie like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem can be made for $70 million? Something is deeply wrong with the management of Disney. Even if they consider that they're going to be making a big blockbuster, so they'll go ahead and they'll spend freely on it, that's fine, but there has to be some kind of common sense about a budget. Disney has so much in the way of production resources, access to so much talent, so many people. They should be able to get these numbers down and get them down tremendously. They shouldn't be spending more on making movies than Sony does, than Paramount does. They just shouldn't. That should be a rule going forward. But they either, one, don't care enough about their movie business to make that happen, or two, don't actually have control enough of the management, because Bob Iger is so hands-off with the people that are running his different divisions at Disney. Bob Iger is actually a really good salesman, but he doesn't seem to be much of a manager, which no doubt is part of the reason why he was so terrified of Nelson Peltz, the activist investor who wanted to see major changes at Disney. There are no good reasons and no good excuses for why when Sony makes a Marvel superhero animated movie, they spend $100 million, but if Disney gets anywhere near doing something like that, they have to spend at least twice the money. And Nelson Peltz would have addressed that. Disney's Haunted Mansion film also lost $117 million. Its total revenues were $143 million against expenses of $260 million, for a net loss of $117 million. How they managed to make that one for $150 million instead of their standard $200 to $300 million budget, who knows? It probably accidentally came in too cheap, and they couldn't figure out a way to blow another $50 million on it. But still, it lost 8 figures at $117 million lost. When Disney puts out numbers, they put out numbers that they want investors to see. They downplay their losses. They don't give good explanations for why their budgets are so high or why the entire movie industry was intimidated by what Marvel used to be just 5 years ago to what it's turned into now, a damaged money-losing operation. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.